Welcome, everybody, to the second installment in Supernatural Beings in Judaism. We are now going to be talking about demons. So, the first thing I would like to... Oh, let me just start again. My apologies. Okay. That's what I get for trying to make it being high tech. Is that the videos start playing when I least suspect it. Okay. All right. So here we go. Okay, so it's the demons in Judaism. So what's the deal? So first, I'm going to leave with some guiding questions. If anybody, just we'll have some idea of where we're going to go to. So we're hopefully going to cover the following: what do demons look like? How do they work? Are they physical or spiritual? And do they still exist? Or do they exist? Period. Okay, so those are the general points we're going to touch on. If anybody has any other questions beyond what I discussed, feel free to ask them at the end. Just for interest of time, we're going to try and stick to the slideshow. Again, write down your questions. I'll plan them after that. Just want to make sure that we get all the material in because there's quite a lot. Okay, so now the first question. Now in response to the first question, of like what demons are. So we're going to have to narrow down when we're talking about which demons. So that is similar to what happened last week. We talked about angels, how angels were depicted or have slightly different depictions depending on time period. The same is also true with demons and demonic figures. So there's one usage in terms of Tanakh. There's one or two types of demons that are mentioned. There's an entirely separate demonology that creeps in when we get to the apocryphal literature. As well as which later becomes, which eventually evolves into Christian demonology. Then there also is the demonology that we see in the times of the Gemara. Then we see the Rishonim trying to deal with, what do they think about demons? And then there's, modern day demonology. The question being, what precisely we would have in terms of, do we have demons nowadays, and how do people relate to them? We're not going to talk about dibbooks if somebody's curious, because that's not related to demons in the classic sense. That's something else. If you have any questions about those, I don't know what their deal is, so we'll just leave that one aside. Okay. So now we're going to now start in chronological order. The first up is in Tanakh. Actually, so here is a list of some names that come up. The first 7 or so are names that are found in Tanakh, right? So these names for demons, or again, not every time are necessarily demons when they come up. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. So the question is, well, who are all these people? What or beings? Are they beings? Are they something else? And that's an excellent question. So we're not going to go through every single one of them. We're going to go through some. Okay, so again, here's some of the ones you may have seen. Okay, Shadim, Seirim, Lilith or Lilith, Reshef, which is fire demon, Azazel, which is when the place where the Kohen's offering Kohen Gadol's offering on Yom Kippur goes to Azazel. The question is that a location or is that to a demon? Obviously, it's not to a demon, or we'll be doing Avodah Zarah, but we'll leave that aside. Whether Azazel can also be a demon. Okay, and then there's other questions. There's also Satan. There's Mashchit. There's Ruchot, and then in Gemara there's Bazikim and Ashmadai. Okay. Again, I put a link here to a list of svaras. Somebody else had to compile the list of demonic forces as listed in Tanakh. Feel free to click through. Again, everybody should have if somebody doesn't have the slideshow, please send me your email and I'll happily send it to you. I'll also put it in the chat towards the end of the night as well. Okay. Actually, I can actually put it in now. I'll put it towards the end because for now, I'm sharing the screen anyway. So, yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about the primary way demons are discussed in Tanakh. Again, hopefully this is larger for people to see. I have both the Hebrew and the English. So the most typical way we relate to demons in the Torah, at least, is, well, demon sorcery is bad. Okay, So, sorry to dash all your hopes of, anybody who really likes, let's say Harry Potter or the like. The answer is you can't do any of those things because they technically fall under the category of demon worship. So one of the most specific ones, right? There's a general one, which is quite explicit as to don't offer directly to demons, right? So that comes from Vayikra. So basically telling the Jews they should please stop worshiping demons. Don't make things offer to the Seirim, which means to the demons in your midst. And similarly, commentary by Rashi and another commentary describe the various forms of magic, astronomy, astrology, and as well as the whole list we have here of divination, sorcery, soothsaying, enchanting, charming, consulting ghosts or spirits for necromancy are all done via consultation or usage of demonic powers. Meaning these are all powers that are controlled by demons, and that's why they're forbidden to be used. Not that they're ineffectual, just that they are demons. Okay, so that's the primary, if we're going to talk about demons, bad. But that's not the whole story. Okay, because again, forgive my translation, but again, like demons don't necessarily mean what you think modern day demons aren't necessarily the ones you see here. Okay, so let's give who is the most here? Who is the most famous demon?
Satan.
Satan, right? The most famous demon. But the question is he really a demon? So this is a picture of Satan from the Devil Bible, also known as Codex Gigas, from the 13th century, right? So this is what somebody thought Satan looked like. Okay. On the other hand, we also have.
Is there a picture?
Everybody see the pictures? Here, first.
I didn't see the first picture.
The first picture we have here is a hand drawing from the Demon Bible or Devil Bible. It is done by a Christian monk in the 13th century. What he thought the devil looked like.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, and then we have this one might be a little more familiar to people. I hope.
That looks like Transformers or one of the recent.
So this one is
Gandalf.
That is Gandalf, and that is Balrog, right? But yeah, so right. So there's many different depictions of what of how we may perceive it. But is that really the way that that in Tanakh, is that really how demons or Satan is portrayed physically? So let's look at one story, which will hopefully enlighten us towards this. Okay, so now first question I have for everybody: what is Satan's job?
That Eo?
Yes, that is Eo. What is his job?
He's the prosecutor.
So I heard prosecutor. What else?
He's the tempter.
Influencing you to do the wrong thing.
Temptation.
He do the wrong thing. He's impatient.
To be a servant of Hashem. To be a servant of Hashem.
He's a servant of God. Okay, so now let's see which one of these hold true.
Well, it depends on if you want the Jewish view or the Christian view.
We're going with the Jewish view. We're going to leave the Christian view aside for now, simply because the Jewish view is complex enough that we will probably not be able to finish it all within the hour. I'll do my best, but the Jewish view is quite complex. So we'll leave off Christian demonology, which is also actually not really Christian. It's actually stolen from the Jews from the Second Temple period, and just morphed and got changed a little bit. But we'll leave that aside. Whether or not that's originally Jewish or not, again, that's a separate discussion that's outside of canonical sources. So we will simply leave it at that. Okay. So as was predicted by Moshe, also known as Lucifer. So yes, this is a reference to the primary story involving Satan in Tanakh, which is the story of Eo. Wait, so there's both Hebrew and the English. Okay.
Eo.
Right, so Eo. Right, I went for the pun of job there. So okay, so here we go. So there was a man named Eo, right? So he was righteous in all the ways. right? Feared God, all the good things. So now let's see who would like to read the what happens with Satan in terms of his involvement here.
There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was wholehearted and upright, and one that feared God and shunned evil. Now it fell upon a day that the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a wholehearted and an upright man, one that feareth God and shunneth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught? Hast not thou made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions are increased in the land. But put forth thy hand now and touch all that he hath, surely he will blaspheme thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power, only upon himself put not forth thy hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord.
Okay. So from this depiction, the classic Christian depiction is we've got a fight going on between Satan and God, and they're in terrible terms. But what does it appear from the story in Job, in Iyov? How's their relationship?
Father and son.
Collegial.
Collegial. Somebody said father and son. I'm not sure if father and son, but as in, would you say this relationship is any different from that of, let's say, another angel, perhaps? Right? Right? Satan walks into the room, and with where the rest of the angels are, goes about his business, gets God's blessing for what he's going to do, and then goes out and does it. He's not, fighting with God. He's simply, another messenger, just doing the slightly, more messy, darker things on God's behalf. So to say Satan is a demon might be a slight misnomer, because he doesn't really seem to be doing anything wrong in anything demonic, right? Satan might actually just be an angel. So again, for as far as we'll have to leave Satan out of this, unfortunately, right? The devil is not the chief devil has retired.
Devil's in the details.
Yes, that is. Okay, so now
I'll ask why in the text it says Hasatan. The Satan came.
Right, because Satan also here. So the etymology of Satan, the Satan, is because he's the one who's the instigator. That's what Satan literally means, is instigator.
Okay.
So we refer to him as Satan. I guess his name is a title, but actually it's more of a description of what he does. Is what the shorish his stin means, is to instigate something.
Okay.
So I believe you mentioned before that about the him being the prosecutor. So that's also part of that. One of the words one of the things that Satan can mean.
Okay.
Okay. So then, so that's a little bit about in Tanakh usage of both, again, demonic force on the one hand. On the other hand, we have Satan not really being so demonic as we think.
A question?
Yes.
Okay. So my question, if Satan is a messenger of God, then why do we call him Satan? Because he's a prosecutor, but he's really a malach, even though he's a Satan. Because if a malach didn't we say he's a messenger, then he's also a messenger. So a Satan is a malach, only he is what we're viewing as a negative malach.
Correct. As in, God's messengers are doing many different things, right? So the Jewish view is that there is one God, and God causes many things to happen, but it's not that we don't believe there's a force of good and a force of evil at work. We believe there's God is at work, and just our perception is whether or not we fully understand it or not, is whether or not we perceive it as being good or evil. There is no such thing as absolute good or evil in terms of outside cosmic forces. Belief in two cosmic forces is what got Acher or Lishman Avuya, what made him go crazy and leave Judaism. For more on that, that's Like a Driven Leaf. Excellent book if you want to read more about Elisha ben Avihu and his falling off the path. Okay. So again, so now that we've got so that's a brief summary of some of the times that it's used in Tanakh. There's also a lot of other cases where the word comes up. Sometimes where it sounds like there's a demonic force. Sometimes it could be either a demonic force or it could just be a place or a location or a time. And that's a debate amongst the various scholars. Is that a demon in that case or something else? But once we're talking about interpretation of the verses, well, then we already left the bounds of simple Tanakh, and so therefore we're just gonna jump on ahead. And if we have time at the end, maybe we'll come back to it. But let's just keep going. Okay. So now the next question is so demons, where are they from? What are they? So one thing to point out is we have the Mishnah in Avot, which people might find a little familiar from there if you have been reading the in your siddur. So again, this is the 5th parak of Pirkei Avot. Normally not the part that people actually get to in the end, because people tend to read the first couple and then decide and then get distracted by something else. But if you were consistently doing so, you would have gotten to this one. But there are certain things created on the eve of the first Shabbat, right before it turned into Shabbos. So like basically the last things that God created as part of nature, even though they weren't part of the formal creation process. So we're going to skip down to one of the maybe also. So what was created on again? So what was perhaps the last thing created? So and some say also the demons, or the Hebrew being the mazikin, right? So that's going to be one of the primary titles that we have moving forward is that we call it the demons are the damaging forces, the mazikin. Okay, so to indicate that they are, as opposed to the angels, which have been in creation since much earlier. We have the demons, which are like basically an afterthought. There are other sources for how they're created, such as from the wasted seed of Adam, or from other incidents. But we're going to go with this one because this is the one that makes it be connected back to God as opposed to by accident. Okay, so now that we have a source for the demons, the question is, well, now there are demons. Can we see the demons? Right? There are demons, great. But like, what are they? Where are they? And what do they do? Okay, so there's a lot of discussion of this throughout the Gemara. So we're going to look at one particular Gemara in Masechet Brachot. Okay, so I'm going to need several volunteers. First, okay. First, I'd like to volunteer to if somebody would like to read there's 3 paragraphs. So I'd like to three different people's Amoraim's view of whether or not of the existence and views on.
Are you ready for more mail or should I wait till tomorrow?
Okay. So who'd like to? So again, feel free to chime in, starting from the first one.
In another brisa was taught that Abba ben Yamin says if the eye was given permission to see, no creature would be able to withstand the abundance and ubiquity of the demons and continue to live unaffected by them. Similarly, Abai said there are more numerous than we, and they stand over us like mounds of earth surrounding a pit. Rav Huna said, each and every one of us has 1,000 demons to his left and tens of thousands to his right. Wow, that's a lot. God protects man from these demons, as it says in the verse, 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand. They will not approach you.
Okay. So based on this, first question, are there demons?
Apparently, yes.
And how many are there? Too many.
11,000.
Right? 10,000. More, enough that you go insane as you saw them, right? And if not for God protecting us, we'd all be destroyed by demons. Very reassuring. Don't read this to your children at night unless you want them not to sleep. So, right? So not so pretty. Note that that again. So the stuff that's not bolded is the interpretation of Rabbi Steinsaltz. Right. so as in like, quoting Rashi and other sources. So it's not, in the text itself. That's, again, the text itself can be found on the right. Okay, you can tell the left side is much longer. The translation. So, okay, so that appears that there are demons, and they are all over the place, but you can't see them. Okay. On the other hand, now as far as some of the effects that they do, so we have Rava blaming them for basically when there's large groups of gatherings for Torah learning, people aren't learning. So that's like such as at Yarchei Kala. Might as well put a plug that for the BAYT Midrash's Yarchei Kala coming up. Also so he says that when those things happen during Elul and Adar, so again, so when those used to happen, so everybody used to, people used to, not properly listen. That was because demons made them not listen. Similarly, if somebody is, if their knees are tired and they can't, meaning they can't, then they can't keep standing up and, and focusing during prayer, demons cause you to do that. Similarly, if your clothes wear out, despite the fact that you didn't do anything, and they're also demons ruined your clothes. And also, if you happen to have if your feet are hurting, you've got terrible bunions or arthritis, it's the demon's fault. Okay. Yes, I see Miriam. Yeah.
Yeah. How are we supposed to feel about the rabbis who spoke this way? Bacteria, like it's all around you. We don't really believe this, do we? And doesn't that cast sort of aspersions on everything else they say?
So we will discuss that at the end. When we get to, I see Mark raise his hand. Yes.
When we talk about demons, is there a connection between that and Yetzer Hara? What's the connection?
Okay, so those are distinct. Yeah, right? Yetzer Hara is your evil inclination. That's going to be part of you, as opposed to demons, which is an external force. So that would be the difference there. Okay. So so as far as how do we relate to them, did they believe, did not believe, what exactly were demons were? So there's a lot of opinions on that. We will get to there. Not quite yet. So as far as how to relate to them and their belief in it and how does that work? So excellent question. So one option you could say is that different physical planes, and that therefore just similar to one could say like similar to the angels, but the only problem is that even the Rambam says that angels aren't physical. He doesn't believe in the existence of demons, which we'll get to also. So yeah, it's a little bit messy. So again, we'll hopefully address the question at the end. Okay, so the next we have, until now this is saying these demons can't be seen. But of course, that's not going to satisfy most of us because we all want to see demons. So the Gemara continues, teaches you how you can see demons. I do not recommend doing this at home because odds are you will, it is very dangerous. More likely because you will wind up at the hospital by trying to do these remedies, so please don't do that. Okay.
Isn't this exactly what the Torah is saying we're not supposed to do, this divination and everything? Isn't this exactly what we're not supposed to do?
Yes, which is why many people say that there's something off, and therefore we must ignore all these Gemaras, and the rabbis at the time were wrong, like the Rambam.
Is that the foundation? Oh, sorry.
So yeah, correct. This does look like that. The question is, what exactly is this? Is this religion worship? Is it not even worship? What is it? Is a good question. Okay, so it also falls into the mix that is, interesting segula, folk remedies and omens and signs, and which ones make sense, which ones don't make sense. Do they used to make sense? They don't make sense anymore. So it gets a little complicated. So for now, we're just going to read to see how they say it was, and then we will not do that. Okay. So as far as for how that could physically work out, we will get to the more of the hows at the end.
This is not consulting with a demon. This is curiosity.
Correct.
One who seeks to know.
Correct. This is not correct. We are not worshiping the demon. We're trying to seek them out somehow, which is again is a difference, but again, is definitely strange. Okay, so I'll just read this in English because there's no reason to read the Aramaic. It doesn't make it. The English is confusing anyways. So one who seeks to know that demons exist should place fine ashes around his bed. In the morning, the demon's footprints appear like chicken's footprints in the ash. So that's why you notice when it's the demon Bible, the devil Bible a while back. Where'd that go? And here it is. So note his feet.
Ooh, chicken legs.
Right? They're chicken or bird feet. Right? So looks like that monk, knew his stuff. Or at least, has been looking at demons too much. Wait, no, too far. There we go. Okay. So that's one way you wanted to know their existence, but not, but not actually see them. If you wanted to actually see them, you should take the afterbirth of a firstborn female black cat, born to a firstborn female black cat, burn it in the fire, grind it and place it on his eyes, and he'll be able to see them. He must then place ashes in an iron tube, so an iron seal, let the demon steal from him, and then steal the opening, and then he will be, so that he will, meaning others will be harmed. Bibi Barbai performed the procedure, saw the demons, and was harmed. And then the sages prayed for mercy on his behalf, and he was healed. Okay, so here's a way that if you wanted to see the demons, what you could do. This sounds like a good way to lose your eyesight and potentially go go blind. But again, this was an option. The main thing I wanted to get people to get out of it is the fact that that demons seem to have chicken feet, and B, that you can pray to kill demons. Okay. Again, I know this is we'll deal with the whole theological, have you read them or not? We'll get to that, once we get through the Gemaras. Yes.
But that almost seemed, that whole thing you just read almost sounds like witchcraft.
Correct. So how is it not witchcraft? Because witchcraft is done something that doesn't work. If it works, it's not witchcraft. It's not a good answer. The answer is that it looks like witchcraft, sounds like witchcraft, and it quacks like witchcraft, and it makes weird noises like a black cat. So
yeah.
Yes. I don't know. So the answer is good question. We will get to that. Okay.
To me, it seems that anybody does all of that, you got to be a bit crazy and see whatever you want to see.
Correct. Self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit. So we'll get to that. So that self-fulfilling prophecy point we'll get to also. That's for Footner's opinion. So that that basically, if you believe they exist, then they'll create their existence. And we'll see the source Gemara that supports that point in just a moment. But first things first, we want to know. Okay, so now we see that they have these weird chicken feet. Okay, but that's not good enough. I want to know more about what demons look like. So for that, worry not. Okay, so then now the Gemara in Chagiga. Okay, so now who would like to? Now we're back to angels, comparing angels with demons. Who would like to read this this account?
I'll do it, Rabbi.
Thank you, Stuart.
The Gemara returns to discussing the heavenly beings. The sages taught 6 statements were said with regards to demons. In 3 ways, they are like ministering angels, and 3 ways they are like humans. The BAYT specifies in 3 ways they are like ministering angels. They have wings like ministering angels. They fly from one end of the world to the other like ministering angels. And they know what will be in the future like ministering angels. The Gemara is puzzled by this last statement. Should it enter your mind that they know this? Not even the angels are privy to the future. Rather, they hear from behind the curtain when God reveals something of the future, like ministering angels. And in 3 ways, they are similar to humans. They eat and drink like humans, they multiply like humans, and they die like humans.
Okay, so what does this imply compared to, let's say, when we discussed last week about angels? So what does this indicate about the physical characteristics of demons as opposed to, let's say, angels?
Sounds like they come in 2 genders if they multiply like humans.
Correct. Well, the angels also have multiple genders. Correct. I see Mark had something also to say.
They don't eat and drink.
Right. Angels don't eat and drink, but the demons do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Which plays into the story of Ashmedai, which we're not going to read the story because that's as a full daf of Gemara that'll take us the rest of our time, and I'd like to keep moving. Okay. So yeah, if you're interested in the in a very good interest in demon story, look at the Gemara Gittin this folio 68 A and B, where it discusses more in depth the story with Ashmedai, and there are other parallels to the story in other parts of the Jewish literature, also known in the Testament of Solomon and other works as well, also give similar stories. Okay, so but we get physical characteristics. Let's focus back. Physical characteristics, right? So we know they eat. Okay, there seems to be male and female. What else do we know about them? Go look back to the first part, not just to the bottom part about them similar to humans, but the part similar to angels. What would that indicate about their physical form? Right? They have wings, and they fly from one end to the other end of the earth, similar to the angels. So what could that mean that they look like?
Angels.
They look like angels, right? Which angels could fly from one end of the world to the other end of the world?
Yechezkel's Merkava.
Correct. Right. The heavenly chariot is described in Yechezkel. Very good. Right. So there we have what is the depiction of angels. Angels look like they're beings made up of fire. They have they have very different faces, but perhaps as this might not be too far off from perhaps what demons look like according to the Gemara. Note the wings, note the body of fire, and note the fact that eventually, if you remember Lord of the Rings, eventually Balrog does get killed. So but perhaps that is how that could be one way of how they look. Again, there are other stories which seem to indicate that they look exactly like humans, so we'll have to leave it as that. Like there's stories of how they needed a 10th man for a minion, and then somebody walks in they didn't recognize, and they go outside and they see that there were chicken feet in the snow, which indicates that I guess that they didn't have turns out that their 10th man was actually a demon. But don't worry. Nowadays, I'm pretty sure all 10 people sign up for Minion are all real people. You don't have to worry about demons slipping in. Okay. So okay. Yeah. Okay. So now we know a little about how they look, right? So they might have looked like angels do. They might look like humans. A little unclear. Different stories point different directions. So, the main question is are there devils? Okay. So for this, there's a story in Psachim that discusses basically talking about on Seder night. The question is, why are there so many things done in pairs and in multiples in the Gemara Psachim? Because are those not all things controlled by demons? So we're afraid that. So there's a worry that the way that Chazal set up the Seder is they basically decided to set us up to be feasted upon by demons. So the Gemara there points out, don't worry, Seder night, demons can't attack you because it's called Leil Shumurim, the night of guarded. So God's human angels obey that night, so don't worry about it. But as part of the discussion, I'd like to focus on one particular passage. Here we go. So again, if you would like to see a more extensive treatment of demons, Rabbi Nathan Slifkin has an excellent article on demons, which I'd recommend. So I see Mark raise his hand. So again, we'll get to your question on the previous one, or is it on the current one?
I didn't raise my hand. If it's
Oh,
me,
it's
I was
before. Oh, that's why I forgot to shut it down. My bad. Okay. Okay. So here we go. So now the question is are we worried about devils or not? Okay. So there's 2 points to look at. So first there's till the ellipse, and there's after the ellipse. Okay. So until the ellipse, Okay, so it says in the West, they are not cautious about having things in pairs. And we say in the West, in the Babylonian Talmud, that means in
Palestine.
Right? In Israel. At the time was called Judea Palestinae. We got that name for rebelling one too many times against the Romans. But yes, in land of Israel, where the Talmud Yerushalmi was written, right? So in Israel, they weren't worried about these demon things. It was but probably cared. So it continues on. So as far as the amount of how much concern you have about pairs, again, which is demons affecting those who are out in the wrong number, who are going outside in the wrong number. So it continues as follows. This is the view in Bavel. The rule of the matter is that for those who take note of the pairs take note of them. Those who do not take note of the pairs are not bothered by them. Nonetheless, it is good to show a modicum of concern. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that as far as can demons attack you when you're walking in the wrong number in an even number pair at night, the answer seemingly is, well, if you're worried about it happening, you will probably be attacked by a demon. But if you're not, probably not. But on the other hand, probably a good idea not to ignore it, because nobody wants to be attacked by a demon when they're walking home late at night. So what does that mean for us? So do we have to be worried about demons or not have to worry about demons? So that I present to you Rambam Demon Slayer. Okay, so why do I call him Rambam Demon Slayer? So who'd like to read who would like to read what Rambam has to say when he's commenting on the Mishnah of Avodah Zarah, again, about people who used to worship demons?
I can read.
Thank you, Mark.
Amongst that which you should know is that the perfected philosophers do not believe in tzelamim, by which I mean talismanery, but scoff at them and at those who think that they possess efficacy. And I say this because I know that most people are seduced by this with great folly and with similar things, and think that they are real, which is not so. And these are things that have received great publicity amongst the pagans, especially amongst the nation which is called the Sabians. And they wrote works, dealings with the stars, and which saying.
Okay, so what is Rambam's feeling about demons?
Forget about them.
Right? No, you can't be. It's just not possible. Same thing with with having to do with the stars, etc. Like all that. That is the talk of the uneducated, or pagan idolaters. No, nobody can really believe that. So the only issue is as well.
Does he consider himself a perfected philosopher?
Yes.
Okay.
In case you're wondering if that's really what he thinks, so here's another one. There we go. So this is from More Nevuchim, Guide of the Perplexed. So would somebody else like to read this one about the belief in demons?
Know that this belief was widespread in the era of our teacher Moses. Many conducted themselves in accordance with it, and people were seduced by it. You find this written in the Song of Ha'azinu. They sacrificed to demons, not to God, the gods that they had never known. The sages explained the significance of the phrase, not to God, when they said that the people not only worshipped actual beings, but even imaginary ones, translated by Rabbi Natan Slifkin.
Okay.
But isn't this reflective of the Rambam's general view against these supernatural, beyond demons, that in many things he says this kind of things?
Correct. He says this is basically everything besides angels. That's supernatural, right? Just doesn't exist. Can't be. So, right, but he said he's got pretty, good sources based on he's quoting the book of the Torah that say don't do any of this, sacrificing to demons. They're the term is Reshafim, right? Fire demons. Actually, I have a friend named Reshef. Parents thought it meant light, but yeah, we found out later that it also that is also means fire demon, depending on usage. So right, so then it's people. There was people that used to believe in demons, and they worshiped them, and that was wrong. You shouldn't sacrifice to them. That's the wrong thing to do. And so then people started worshiping things that didn't necessarily exist, and that's the problem. So the Rebbe also views that, that idol worship wouldn't work. Okay, again, there's others who would argue with him on that. Okay, that it was, again, it's the group efficacy, etc. We'll leave aside for now, but that's part of the question. But again, Rambam very strongly against. So now let's hear. So yeah, for a full survey on this, again, I'd recommend seeing Rabbi Slifkin's article on the topic. It's over 30 pages. I got quite other books too, but it is just good, succinct, and in English. So and it's accessible online. I think it's $5 to buy, but definitely worth it. It's a good read. So here we go. So who thinks that demons exist? So here's a nice list. Okay, based on this is some of the ones listed by Rabbi Slifkin. Again, we'll go through the ones that you that may be familiar. People who thought that demons definitely existed. We have so who thinks they did? So we've got Tanaim and the Moraim, right? That's pretty clear based on the stories he quoted in the Mishnah and Gemara. They're talking about Mazikin, left, right, everywhere. Okay, then other people you may have heard of who believe in demons. So we've got Moshe Taku, who's one of the Tosafot. We've got the Ramban. We've got the Rashba, Rachel Benaderet. Yeah, look at this. Look at the years here. This is going even to the modern, right? Okay, Benu Bachya. We've got the Meir Yitzchak Al-Dabi, Rav Chasdai Kreskes, one of the commentators on the Rambam. We've got Yosef Albo. We've got Shem Tov Ibn Shem Tov. We've got the Barbanel. We have the Vilna Gaon. All believe that in the existence of demons. And then on the other hand, people who didn't believe in demons, we've got the Rambam mentioned before. We've got the Rabbeinu Nisim Gaon. We've got the Rambam's son. We've got the Ralbag. We've got right. So see the list here. A lot of people who, again, on both sides. Let's see if there's a question. What about Rashi? So excellent question. So Rashi appears to he never says they don't exist. So it appears that he does. And he mentions that demon worship, that the magic stuff is done using demons. So he seems to indicate that it has efficacy. Rashi. Again, because Rashi is more of a on-the-spot commentator, it's not necessarily as clear what exactly he means in a given case, because it's just harder to nail down. Because a lot of times he'll explain what the Gemara is saying, but it doesn't mean that's his personal opinion a lot of the time. So sorry if that's not super clear, but that's unfortunately where we end up standing. Yes. Yes, Moshe.
What about the Malbim? Like, what don't we have all those big legends of the Golem of the Prague? Wasn't the Malbim the rabbi at the time? Like, how come he's not even on either list?
Okay, so that's because this is not a complete comprehensive list. This is a partial list. Also, the story of the Golem is not necessarily historically accurate. That there's debate among scholars whether or not that was. Basically, the issue is that the Malbim himself never references. Sorry, the Malbim Prague never references his golem. There's stories more about it, but he himself never talks about it. And the first instance of referring to the Malbim Prague's golem is about a century after his death, in a collection of short stories in Yiddish published in the United States somewhere. So therefore, people are like, I don't think that therefore its accuracy of being historical is debated. But we'll leave that aside, because the golems are different, are not demons. They operate on a different principle, if they operate at all, based on emet, truth. So not quite demons. Okay. Okay, so then the next here. So then there's some other options. So as far as one of the options, so I mentioned Rav Hutner earlier about how basically but your belief can make them substantiate into reality. So that's one opinion. Okay. Another option is this is the opinion quoted here. You see, this is the opinion of Rav Shimshon Farel Hirsch. So here's his way of not answering a question, which I just thought is interesting to see. How he says, who dares get involved in a dispute between the Rambam and the Ramban, following whom the camp of Israel split in two on such matters? As far as split in two, we saw that earlier. And if so, every intelligent person is entitled to adopt either view in the absence of either being ruled out. They're both possible. Alternatively, and in my view, this is the more correct approach. He can admit that he has no clarity in the matters. And I will admit without shame that I have never bothered to investigate and analyze the nature of these things, just as I have never been curious to investigate and inquire as to the nature of the world to come, the world of resurrection, and so on. Right? So as far as all these big philosophical questions people always ask, his answer is like, I'm busy enough as is with this world, so leave me. So like I'm like, and I don't get it. So like that's it. I've heard similar responses from Rav Aaron Lefsin Zatzal, and what's the deal with Kabbalah mysticism? He's like, I'm still dealing with the regular the more standard revealed Torah. When I finish that, I'll let you know what I think about Kabbalah, which and he never really did. So the answer is like some people you can just like basically avoid. You don't have to decide. Truth these things concealed from everyone, and it is impossible to obtain clarity on these things with decisive proofs. Also, what difference does it make if, with regards to matters of witchcraft, such like the truth lies in the Rambam or the Ramban? Either way, we have to distance ourselves from such things, whether they're genuine or nonsensical. Okay, so again, so whether or not these things are true, not true, the answer is that. So again, Rav Hirsch would say, you could say either way. We have sources on both sides of it, but at the end of the day, you're going to not practice it anyways, whether it works or doesn't work, because we all prefer not to violate prohibitions on the biblical level. We generally try and avoid that. As fun as it might be to pretend like we're Harry Potter, none of us really want to burn in hell. Again, whether burning in hell is a thing or not is a separate thing that we're not supposed to ask about, so we'll leave that as a question mark. Okay, so other options. Okay, we also have somebody mentioned earlier about bacteria. I believe Miriam did. So the question of, so that's from Aaron Soloveitchik's opinion, is that there are forces invisible to the naked eyes, the germs or delusions. That is what the demons are, right? So the perception of the ancient world was for things they couldn't explain. They said those are my demons. Meanwhile, nowadays we have perfectly logical reasons for why, let's say, you get sick, or why things had bad things happen to you at night, etc. Like we have perfectly logical explanations for why these things can happen. Just back then they didn't know. On the other hand, we have a very interesting comment by Dr. Grach. This is by Rabbi Dr. Chaim Metzger, who says basically he's a rabbi, professor, and historian, on specialist in history of halacha. So he says that the standard approach to how to deal with it, he's noting, in the last century, is you just ignore it, right? Whether you're a traditionalist, rationalist, Kabbalist, most people's response is, we're just going to not deal with this because, honestly, that's not on the top of our agenda that we need to do. And since, the world works just fine if we ignore them, so we'll just keep on going on ignoring them. Whether we think they do it or not, doesn't matter. It's okay. We can go through again if you want. For more sense of lists, again, you can look at Rabbi Slifkin's article or others books have written on the topic. Okay, I see now that we're already that's down to 5. So, okay, so the next section is the question of how do you war with demons. I'm going to run through this relatively quickly because I want to make sure that I let everybody go within the hour. Again, at the end, feel free to ask whatever questions I did not answer at the end, because I'm sure we all know that demons exist. Therefore, we want to know how to ward them off. So, how to get rid of demons? So, there's several options we have. Okay, so one option is, as we mentioned, they don't exist, leave me alone. But if you want to have more fun, so here's the ways you can get rid of demons. Okay, so one way is you can have a kamea, right? These are amulets. They were widespread in use until relatively recently. And so in some areas, in some parts of Judaism, currently they actually are. So basically, again, we have stories throughout the Gemara about amulets and and how they work, and they seem to work. Not going through all the stories, but point is that's one way. A lot of the kameos were basically used to ward off demons, right? Ancient demon catchers, or so to speak. Okay, so that's one option. Option two.
Is it possible that if you in any way believe in amulets, it's irresponsible because it may be something out there that's going wrong, a health issue, and you're using this nonsense instead of focusing on what you should be focusing on?
On the right. So we're not saying this is in lieu of medical of seeking proper medical attention. It's more like another is in order to address the things that you don't know how to deal with. Let's say the forces beyond the naked eye that you don't have control over. So this is a way to deal with them. Again, I'm not
isn't it also
okay, a second. I'm just going to run because I know people. I want to just like I'll run through it quickly, and then I'll take the questions. Just I want to make sure that somebody needs to leave, that they can leave within an hour of start time, because I don't want to hold them too long. Okay. Again, so one option is that you can kameos work. That's one thing that can work. Another thing that can work is by saying Kriyat Shema or by davening. You can also protect you from demons, because demons are at night, and Kriyat Shema Mitzvah protects you from that. So again, here's stories from the Gemara, that quote the actual Gemara. This was the Gemara in Brachot, again talking about different types of ways of how Shema protects you. Okay, leave it at that. We don't have time to analyze the Gemara right now. Okay, that's one option. Another option is a demon incantation bowl. Everybody sees that one, right? So these were widespread during the. This is an upgraded version of Kamea, which used to be buried by the entrance to your house, and it would ward off demons from entering your house. And if you look here at the English, you may or the Aramaic, you may notice that this seems a lot. This is actually the language of a get, a divorce document, because apparently if you divorce a demon, it no longer comes back. And in it, you mention names of demons, and you mention, invoke names of holy people in order to keep it away from you. Okay, that is demon bowls, simply an extension of Kameot. And last but not least, the one that everybody here definitely currently uses, and that is the mezuzah. Okay, so about the mezuzah protects. So the answer, the people probably familiar with the Gemara that you want the mezuzah to protect, to surround you with mitzvot on the house. Definitely sharecha. You'll write it on your doorposts. But there's also the idea that if you don't, this is mentioned in the Gemara Talmud Yerushalmi, that if you don't properly have your mezuzah fixed, you are at risk of danger. And what is the risk of danger? Again, the stuff that's not bolded this time is actually a commentary called Did Nefesh. So it says that why is there danger not having your mitzvahs up properly in your home? Because if your mitzvah is not in the right place, its protection is no longer there, and therefore you were at risk for being damaged by the mazikin. Because otherwise you would have been, because that's what the mezuzah would do to serve, is protect you. So again, the question is, are you better served by the mezuzah or a demon incantation bowl? I would say use the mezuzah, because that's a mitzvah deraisa, and mitzvot are good things that protect you. That's not a magic incantation. Yes.
Does the chamsa fall under kameha? Where does the chamsa come in?
Kamea land. We're gonna we have this entirely separate share on what kameot are and their efficacy or non-efficacy, but that would probably that would be way too long period. Okay, in terms of another example of why mezuzah might the source of this might be found in last week's parsha. Two weeks parsha of when you put the blood of the Korban Pesach in when the Jews were in Egypt, they would put the blood on the doorpost so that the mashchit would not be able to come into the homes. Right. So when God is passing over them, so the blood on the doorpost would serve to protect them. So therefore, so that might be the source. Okay. Again, so getting quick summary, and then we'll open the floor to all of the interesting demonic questions you may have. Just okay. So what it looked like. So we basically had they look either like humans, or they may look something akin to angels, fiery with wings, and quite fantastical. How do they work? So the answer is that will depend on whether or not on their existence or not. So, and again, are they physical or spiritual? So we kind of manage that they do affect this. They seemingly, again, this comes up to do they exist or not. Are they affecting you physically or not affecting physically? Or is just as Reinhardt said, that it's basically because you believe in it, therefore it becomes manifested in reality. But if you don't, then they don't exist. Again, a way of warding them off. We had a whole list. My favorite of which were the demon bowls or the potential usage of the mezuzah. Okay. Yeah, so next week we'll be doing constellations. So tune in again, same time. Okay. Feel free to ask the questions now.
You mentioned that you would address how we view rabbis who are also doing very serious things in the Gemara, and also talking about this, I'm going to say it really quiet, Narishkeit.
So that's why for that one, that's why I gave the here. That was my quote of the Rav Hirsch. The here, hopefully that's that here. That basically that the question for how they may work on the physical plane or the spiritual plane, right? So that's a large debate. Let's say similar to what we had last week with the angels between the Ramban and the Rambam. About are they ability to affect the physical world? So yeah, so then there are ways to justify and explain how demons could function or not function based on discussion we had last week as well as this week. So as far as how to relate to the answer is like, yeah, one question is, do they currently exist or not, and is it a separate plane of existence or functionality? Because things that may or not work, that work based on either Kabbalah or based on more mystical elements or spiritual elements. So then a lot of it comes down to if you believe it, it functions. If not, it doesn't function. As well as, are we actually physically able to perceive it or not? Questions. So the rabbis that say that they work, the answer is that it can still work on a spiritual level, the same way that Rambam viewed the way that angels work. So they may work on a spiritual plane, and that may in turn potentially affect the physical plane. And we've also that they don't work, and both of those are completely tenable, rational things to say. It's just for many people, it's just hard to say when you can't touch it and feel it. Like the Rambam would say that, well, then I don't know what you're talking about. And others would say, no, like it's spiritual, you can't feel it. So and therefore it's unprovable in the end, as is noted by Rav Hirsch.
The rabbis allow people to wear kameh if there's no eruv, because I think they feel it has a function.
If
so
it works.
if it works, but I don't think they would even consider it. They wouldn't even discuss it if they didn't think it had potential value.
Right, they thought it had value. That's why they allow it, right? So then it's not. Then is it wearing a necklace is mutter without an eruv, right? The problem is what do you consider the way commands work? Is basically it's a pouch with words stuck inside. So whether or not that's considered you're carrying the little amulet, or you are wearing a necklace that's functional kameh, would be determined based on, is the amulet functional or not. If the amulet is functional, then I'm wearing a nice protective necklace, and that's fine. But if not, then I'm carrying around a ineffective piece of paper around my neck, and then I'm in violation of carrying. So that's why efficacy matters in that case. See, somebody asked, is the evil eye connected to demons, or is it a separate thing? So it can be and it cannot be. So because the evil eye, so part of it is because when people see, let's say, your success, they may wish for your downfall. So not necessarily that you're invoking the demons, but it's more like people around you. Let's say if you're being, let's say the case of, not having two siblings, having a father and a son get consecutive, called up the Torah. If people will see that and they'll basically wish you bad and curse you in the process. So in that context, the evil eye is not because of demons affecting you. It's because, people are terrible and will wish you and will wish for your death, and that can sometimes come true if God listens to their prayers. And so the Ayin Hara is often assumed to be that. So not necessarily demonic in nature, but depending on your understanding of how demons work, and if they're just simply your desires and reality manifest, then could be literally be just that. That by invoking people's ire, you then create them, make them real, and then therefore you doom yourself to death.
So then with that, what about when people wear a red string or a blue
Oh, that's usher.
and a blue bead that's against the evil eye? Like,
Right. So the only issue with that is that's actually explicitly under Tosefta an issue of something called Darkei Amori, the practices of the Emorites, which is the non-Jewish practices. So you are not allowed to buy a red bendola. So with school, certain schoolot are, some of them are actually explicitly forbidden by the Gemara. Other ones are allowed. The ones that are explicitly forbidden are because they were used by idol worshippers, and red bendola is one of them. I could send you sources on why red bendola is a problem. Basically, just don't buy red bendolas. Best thing to do to keep away from ayin hara is to do mitzvot and to be an overall humble, nice person. Is generally the best way to steer clear of the ayin hara.
And there's also hanging Rebbe's pictures in the crib and the stroller.
So right, so that practice particularly sounds a lot, and that usage is very similar to the way that the Roman the Eastern Orthodox Church uses pictures of saints. So that's actually probably avodah zarah. But on the other hand, maintaining pictures of your rabbis and of your elders as a way of reminding yourself to do the right thing is, on the other hand, praiseworthy. The verse goes, "V'hayu to merecha." Morecha. Sorry, it's not a pasuk. It's adage from the Gemara that your eyes should see your teachers. So there is some, and the midrash about how Yosef did not end up sinning with Esha Potiphar, with his master's wife, because of seeing an image of his father, in his head. So the idea of having pictures on the wall to help you spur you of righteous individuals to spur you for do the right thing is potentially beneficial and a good thing. But as far as whether or not you should use it like it's a magic formula, that might be a potential problem. But yeah, that's a larger discussion of what is considered to be Kamea and what is Kamea turn into being avodah zarah, or Darkei Amori, right? Idol worship or pagan practices. So it gets a little complicated and messy. So I would stick to, again, the best skula is doing Torah mitzvot. Just saying, that one's a pasuk. So like that one I can say with full certainty.
How can a reliance in an amulet not be avodah zarah? How can reliance in an animate object not be avodah zarah?
It's because the question is how does the amulet work? Are you viewing the amulet as if it's a mini idol, or is it basically a reminder towards the things it says in it? Let's say the prayers it's telling you to say, or that are written in it. It's not, you're not worshiping the item. The item is simply a means of focusing on prayers. Like, let's say, you keep your sitter with you to remind you to, or your to remind you to pray. That's not necessarily a problem, whereas it would be a problem if you were to be.
It's not that cold right now.
I have a lot of ice cream soup.
Okay, so
how do we understand segula?
Good question. So as I'm very skeptical of skulas. As I said, the best skula is to do Torah. If you'd like a separate shear on skulas, we can do that at a later date. It would require a little more research to get the full range of opinions. Also, important thing about skulas a lot of times is that they're often just schemes dressed up as skulas. So be careful about skulas. There are like, pay me, buy my special blessed X for $100. I'll protect you from. If you see that it looks like pay money to protect you, that's basically a scam, and you should stay far away. But as far as are there other schools that work? Again, the only school that I know for sure that definitely works is following Torah mitzvot. The other ones is a share for another time.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, I see. My mom's raising her hand. Yes.
What do you ask?
What about going to graves?
What about going to graves? Abba wants to know.
Okay, going to graves. Okay, so there's a difference between praying to a grave or to the spirit of a dead person, which is potentially a violation of worshiping Ov, Ish Balat Ov, or Yidoni, again, that was in the verse that we quoted in Varim about how certain types of magic are forbidden. So again, so that'd be if you are praying to a dead person, dead spirit, or dead thing. On the other hand, the visiting a grave is not a problem. That is, again, for instance, that and the question of how does that work when you go to a grave, and like why there's in and of itself is a much larger discussion. But basically, if you're going to visit a grave to pray so the person's merits be with you, or to help you focus on your prayers, that is fine. Just do not be praying to the dead person, right. Because that would definitely be a problem. But as far as go visiting graves, visiting dead people passed away, again, there's no problem with that. Just don't pray to the person who passed away. You pray to God, and just maybe the location will help you focus your prayers better. Yes, the Cohens. Yeah. You're muted, by the way.
I was trying to unmute. So I don't know if this even is the same, and I'm scared to ask, but what about when generally people go to the kotel and they put a note in the wall of the kotel? Is that not also sort of in the same thing, in the same vein? And
so
you can put your notes in your mind to Hashem. I don't know, like I'm just curious.
Oh, here. So right. So if you're still writing down a prayer, it's not really a problem. If you actually think that it's a magic formula that if you write this on the wall, it'll happen, then that is a problem. Mm-hmm. Right? If you're simply a written out version of prayer definitely isn't an issue. But if you think that by my writing and putting it on the wall, it'll for sure happen, that's problematic.
But isn't that a desecration of writing a prayer if you're just going to leave it outside in the wall to all the natural?
I mean, if you don't use God's name, there's no issue. But again, and also what they tend to do is afterwards, all the notes that people put on the wall, they tend to put them in Shemot afterwards.
Okay.
So that's what they clean them out regularly because otherwise there would be no more room left in the kotel. It would just be a wall of paper. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Okay, I see that. I got can we ask the dead rabbi individual and ask them to speak on our behalf? So that's a debate. When we are diving at somebody's kever, what does that mean? Are we asking them to be kind of like an intermediary on our behalf? Again, which some would say that's fine. Some would say that's actually what is Zara. Again, two different sides of an argument, which take much more time to discuss. Or you're saying that in their you're asking someone. We say every day when we get in Shemona Esrei, right? So the Salam to Midah, Salam prayer, we start with invoking the merits of our forefathers. So we're simply asking God to remember the merit of the person who's passed away. So that might be, again, so depending on the technical mechanics of what your prayer is and how you're doing it, would be whether or not you are actually in violation of something or not. It can get, hopefully that's clear. But again, there's a separate discussion of how it works. But so yeah, visiting graves of love of tzaddikim or of love the passed away, again, there's no problem. Also, again, may cause you to have moments of spirituality and of prayer as well. That's perfectly fine. But again, don't pray to the dead person. That's the main thing that you should not be doing. Yeah.
On that point, doesn't the Kitzur say that you're supposed to be beseeching the dead person to pray to God on your behalf?
So he is in the school of thought that that's not a problem. Someone said that is a problem.
Okay.
Right. The question is are you allowed to use our intermediaries good or bad in the context of prayer and everything else? That's right. So that's also the question you have to work in. But again, there are those who say that's how it works. When you go to the kever, you're asking them to basically be like them to be the emissary. Again, which isn't necessarily a problem. You're still praying to God. They're just helping it, pushing it through. But others would say that you can't do that's problematic. Again, so that's part of the debate about praying at somebody's graves at the graves of the righteous. So if you Google, there's many articles written on the topic. If you'd like more, again, please email me and I'll happily send you more. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier, if anybody would like to be added to my email list, please either send me in the chat or email me at cmetzger@torontotorah.com. And that way, you know, I'll be able to send you leading up to the next year. I'll be able to send you the link to the slideshow or any other relevant materials. Let me copy the Rosh Hashanah of the game. My apologies. There we go. That's the link for today's one. Again, maybe we'll have gotten the email again. If you haven't email for me, let me know and I'll send it to you. Also, the sheet will be posted online as well, so you should be able to have access through that as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you everybody for coming.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
I wonder where you got that pesky belief in what was it that he said about
Schools.
about school as not being anything. I wonder where you got that belief from. You probably didn't get it though, probably from your grandfather. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.